Thanks everybody for being with us for the last session of the day. Thanks, Joe, for being with us. We've seen all sorts of stuff today. We've seen spinal surgery, molecules as big as your house. We've seen a whole bunch of interesting stuff using AR and VR today. I thought our last speaker, who surprised me because when I originally talked to him, he was like, okay, so we're gonna use Dodgeball to treat anxiety. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, how is that gonna treat anxiety? But you know, it's a fascinating approach. Joe, you've got something that I'm super impressed by. I think you're really onto something here, but I'm gonna let you just take it away because you've got the video and the whole thing. So I'll chime in with a few questions in a little bit, but go ahead.
Fantastic. So let me share my screen because like every good nerd, I'm a big fan of PowerPoint. And really I wanted to thank you, Mark, for the opportunity to kind of share a little bit about this and really talk to you guys a little bit about some cool stuff that we're doing to help kids with anxiety. So just as a 2-second overview, I'm not going to bore you with too much about child anxiety, but I think it helps to understand a little bit about it. It's a really common condition that a lot of young people face. Depending on the study, 10% up to 30% of people will have this as a condition. It gets in the way of life. Like, let's be very honest, especially in the times of COVID, everybody's so much more anxious. You know, we're concerned about how we look on Zoom or GoToMeeting. You know, we're concerned about so many things, and it gets in the way. It makes our life difficult. Two things I really want to hit home on is it's actually untreated childhood anxiety is a risk factor for severe mental illness in adults, substance abuse, suicidal ideations, depression. So this is actually a big problem that has a lot of impact later on down the road if it's left untreated. But if we treat it early and effectively in childhood, we know that it goes away. We know that people, when they learn the skills, do fantastic. Great. So what are the treatments? Medication. You know, medication works, but doesn't get you all the way there. You don't get all the way better, and it's really managing symptoms, much more the physiological symptoms. The gold standard treatment for childhood anxiety is something called cognitive behavioral therapy, which mainly consists of 4 things. And this kind of sets us up for that VR Dodgeball piece. The 2 kind of general components are letting you know what anxiety is and what anxiety isn't. So providing you with some information about how your thoughts and your feelings all relate to your behaviors, which is really important, and letting you know that a lot of people, when they get really anxious, feel those same physiological symptoms of anxiety, and giving you skills to fight against those worry thoughts. You know, did I remember to lock the door before I left for the office? Is the coffee maker still on? All of that other stuff. The 2 main components in terms of therapy, therapeutic strategies that we teach in CDHX, kids and adults, but mainly I work with kids, are facing your fears. So it's something we call exposure. So if I'm afraid of public speaking, forcing myself to go out in public speak in a stepwise fashion. But the other component is relaxation skills training, learning to calm my body. So when I'm really anxious, I get really uptight. You know, I feel a lot of muscles in here. My heart might be racing out of my chest. You know, and I want to try to learn to calm my body down. Take slow, deep breaths and really calm myself. Right? Makes complete sense. Even though this is the gold standard treatment, only about half of people get better, which is really not great. So if you go to the doctor and you pay a whole bunch of money, and you only get a 50% chance of exhibiting some clinically meaningful improvement, this is not great, to be very honest. So what are the challenges? Why isn't this working for everybody? So we know when you use the skills, you know, the facing your fears, using those relaxation training skills, you actually get better. So the more you practice, and the more you practice, the better you get. And, you know, I went to Catholic school, and I had a nun who used to tell me hard work pays off. This is the same type of thing. When you put in the hard work, it actually pays off. But there's a lot of challenges when trying to kind of do relaxation and mindfulness and stress reduction techniques when you're not face-to-face with a clinician, right? First and foremost, you don't get corrective feedback, right? So, you know, I'll teach kids these skills. They'll go home, they'll try to practice them, and they might be practicing them wrong. They may not be taking full deep breaths. You know, they might be doing more Lamaze breaths, like, you know, doc, I'm doing my deep breathing. And you're really kind of not. And it's not doing it the way to actually calm your body and calm your mind. Second of all, a lot of this stuff that we teach kids in relation to anxiety, in relation to stress management, doesn't really apply to real world situations. You know, in therapy, whether you're at home or whether you're kind of practicing at a clinician's office, we sit up straight, we're really kind of calm, we close our eyes, we practice these skills. If I'm getting, if I'm having to give a presentation in front of a ton of people, if I'm getting picked on the playground, if I'm having to kind of be separated from somebody, if I have a child with separation anxiety, these are skills you have to practice in the moment. And when we're actually practicing these skills, they're not really generalizable. Being calm is not when you need those skills most. It's really when you're really agitated, really worked up, when you're moving around, when you really want to kind of get that. And last but not least, I'm an exciting person. At 3:15, 3:20 in the afternoon, I am still peppy, ready to go. I have cute little backgrounds on the slides. So I am highly excitable. But even when I try to teach kids these skills, I'm boring. After 3 to 4 minutes, kids just kind of drop off. Even adults too. This is not stuff that is the most exciting, and it's hard to kind of practice. And as a result, people often practice it incorrectly. And then the most common thing I hear is, well, it doesn't work for me, or I tried it once and I'm not getting better. So how do we kind of make this core component of cognitive behavioral therapy, that's a gold standard treatment, a bit better? And this is where I started kind of getting a little bit, more of a creative hat on. How can we kind of make therapeutic exercises more like games? Every kid likes a game. I would argue a lot of adults like games. So how do we kind of make this bigger, better, faster, stronger, more interesting? Can we use virtual reality, particularly immersive virtual reality, to make therapeutic exercises much more fun? Can we actually offer, rewards where now there's an incentive to actually play this type of a game and offer real-time feedback? So, if we practice a skill once on a Monday afternoon or once on a Friday afternoon, we don't have to wait a full week for you to come back in and hear, hey, this isn't actually the way you're meant to be doing this, and to get corrective feedback, because the more you practice appropriately, the better you get. And what we can do over time is by kind of providing this feedback, by training people to do what they need to do, we can actually tailor treatments, getting people the skills that they need and optimize therapeutic learning. But so how do we kind of teach deep breathing skills, mindfulness skills, in a way that's more fun and engaging? I had many ideas at the start of this journey that began a few years back. And ultimately, I kind of settled on Dodgeball, where you can kind of dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. And I'm going to show you guys a little. Are you guys able to see the clip from this? Mark, give me a head nod. Okay. And what you're going to see here is Rachel, who's our research assistant here, modeling what's going on. And it's just largely boxes on one side of the screen, throwing dodgeballs at her head. And she has a little clip to her ear that I guess it would be on her left ear that's monitoring her heart rate. So this is kind of what the clinician or the person who's running the task sees. Here's what Rachel's seeing. She's having these balls thrown at her head. She is choosing to try to block all of them rather than dodging, ducking, dipping, and diving. But what you're seeing here is she's engaged. She is completely immersed in this activity of largely just little spheres being thrown at her head. And what we've done to try to actually provide feedback is we've linked her ability to use deep breathing skills embedded in gameplay. So you'll see in the next clip when she actually, she's moving around, she's active, her heart rate's starting to get elevated, right? But as she starts to use her deep, and as her heart rate gets elevated and out of this target range, you're going to kind of see the side part of the screen start to dim. Now her score isn't going to get as high. She's not going to do as well. So now there's an incentive to actually start to use the deep breathing skills in a way to reduce her heart rate and actually have a better kind of gameplay, right? Now what happens if she goes too low? Because maybe we want this person, this particular child, to experience some level of anxiety. So as opposed to going dark, what you actually see when her heart rate gets too low is now you're starting to kind of see it fuzz out on the sides. And now again, the gameplay becomes really not that usable, not that kind of fun, and not that enjoyable. We've moved it a lot further along since these initial clips done by Rachel. We've made it a better gymnasium. We put kind of, little like corny opponents on the other side. And the thought is to kind of embed rewards and kind of build more gameplay into it to make it a lot more fun. And now it is kind of XR and VR is becoming much more affordable. We kind of are able to do a whole lot more with actually taking this out from our kind of clinic and putting it in homes and families, or not homes and families, in more of a community setting where kind of patients, families, and a lot of other folks can actually use this, and the skills have a lot more benefit to people who need them the most. But that is kind of my spiel, and I'd love to kind of talk to Mark and share with you guys a little bit about that process, and thank all the people who are in my lab who make this study possible and this work possible, because it's a team effort. It really is.
So Joe, tell us. So you've got the headset, but then you've also got an ear clip that's monitoring
heart rate.
Pulse? So how does that work? Heart rate?
So it's just a small like Arduino. So this is how we kind of first started with just kind of building this stuff, because the technology, as you guys have known, has rapidly evolved. So in that kind of clip with Rachel, it's just in your clip to just measure heart rate. And then it kind of goes along the same wires all the way back up to the desktop and the Vive Oculus. I forget which one we're on at that point. The long-term goal is to make it all wireless, right? Wires aren't fun. So now we're trying to kind of adapt that. There's a couple cool toys that we've come into possession of, for wireless biological feedback. The kind of take-home point with all of it, though, is while we're focusing on heart rate, you could focus on skin conductance. You could focus on, for a panic disorder, a respiratory sinus arrhythmia has something. Over time, you can even start to integrate this with some neural measures of kind of feedback. So embedding it with neurofeedback, which has some possible benefit for things like ADHD. So the concept is, can we make a tool that we're linking, your gameplay to, that's of interest to hold your attention, because therapeutic skills are boring. Going to therapy is boring, but if we make the practice of it fun, and not just make it fun, but provide you with corrective feedback, real-time feedback. So when you're doing something right and when you're doing something wrong. Because practicing a skill, if you think about golf, I don't know if you're a golfer, Mark, but if you have a bad golf swing and you practice your bad golf swing, you're still gonna shank it to the right or hook it to the left. Same type of thing here. If you're practicing the skill wrong, it's not gonna pay off like it should.
No, I think this is interesting from a couple of perspectives. I mean, one, I think the gamification of the blurring out and the darkening, that's clearly very smart. That's a very interesting innovation that I have not seen. And we just had a speaker just before this, excuse me, who is working with MD Anderson on sort of gamifying mobility, getting, pediatric oncology patients to walk down the hall, and go, find things on the walls and stuff using AR, which is fascinating. But I like the gameplay aspect of this. The other thing that I think this also, I would think this is part of this is something they don't only have to do at your shop, they could take this home. This could be something that they could go practice at home. Is that right?
So this all got developed. I mean, this has been going on for years now, but the game plan is to make this portable, right? You think about the Oculus Quest, and I'm assuming I'm assuming HTC Vive will come out with something similar, where you can actually make this portable. So I don't see that this can't be portable, and we're currently trying to explore how to kind of make the multiple different components talk to each other and provide that real-time feedback. Because I think it's fun. It's entertaining and engaging.
Yeah, and you're certainly benefiting from a lot of the sensor technology is all shrunk. I mean, you're getting, when you and I talked before, I said, yes, I've already got the forehead swab, the pulse oximeter. I'd never heard of the ear clip. I'll have to find one of those too.
So the ear clip came out because initially when we were doing it with, the pulse, so it functions as a pulse oximeter largely. It's just a homegrown one, because we wanted to have your hands free in these initial clips. A lot of the pulse oximeters clip to your finger. The Arduino that we built specifically, it's just a pulse oximeter that you clip to your ear. Now they have better ones where you can actually just use a ring. So I think I think the sensors are advancing. I think the technology is becoming more affordable and wireless, which I think are three key things that make a lot of things much more possible. The flip side is you don't just want to create a game for creating a game's sake. It has to have some therapeutic purpose, at least in this particular case, trying to teach people skills that they're going to use and get better.
And so where does it go from here? You've got kind of a, it looks like you've got some form of working prototype now. Where are you planning on taking this next?
So I think there's a couple different directions. I think we have to kind of refine it a little bit. It's moved along since Rachel kind of modeled it there. But I think we have to I think the longer term, this is a prototype. The longer term kind of test use cases really has to be wireless. Because I think, this is not something where you're going to schlep all the way down to Baltimore to do. This is something where we want to put it out in places where people can use it ideally in their own homes. So making it wireless, we have to kind of put some polish on the wireless version and kind of pilot that out. And I think kind of testing it out. Are we able to actually, make CBT better by using this tool? And then two, if we are, if we're not, then we failed miserably, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have applications in a lot of other areas. We're all stuck inside during COVID. Can this be used as a weight loss tool? Repurposing it for whatever we need to. The reason, we kind of developed it as broad as we did, and not saying we're going to teach CBT skills. We want to teach a skill. We want to have a target that can actually be modifiable in a lot of different ways. And the more, then it has a lot more applicability across conditions. We're using it specifically in anxiety because I'm an anxiety and OCD researcher and clinician. But there's a lot of other applications too that we can also explore, because it's making things a bit more fun. And it's immersive, and it's not, you're just literally having little boxes throw spheres at you. It worked pretty well.
How did you, I mean, maybe I missed it. Maybe you said, how did you come up with Dodgeball? Like what made you, how did you make that connection?
So the really, really good question. My initial thought was I wanted to come up with, and I know this is being recorded, so I'll regret this later, but I wanted to come up with a first-person shooter game, because I was like, well, what do kind of anxious, kids like? And I was like, well, video games. Well, what's the most popular video game? At the time, it was like Call of Duty or some variant of Halo. And I was like, well, how cool would it be if, as you're using your deep breathing skills and as you're playing this, you were able to, have a better ammo aim, or you could actually in gameplay, bolster up your shields by using these types of skills. Because now you're having fun and it's embedded in gameplay. I think that probably, as a mental health professional promoting use of guns, is probably not the thing to do. So and the other part too is I also wanted something that everybody could relate to, not just kind of anxious adolescent boys that I was seeing. And so I wanted a kind of fun general game that, pretty much anybody who's as young as 6 and as old as 76 can play. And I think that's where Dodgeball has this universal appeal, where one, it's creating movement. So you're not just kind of sitting in your chair practicing deep breathing or meditation. You're actually moving around and getting your heart rate up. And two, it's involving, you have to kind of, multiple things have to be going on. You have to be kind of moving around. You have to be able to kind of practice your skills while standing up. And on top of it, you have to kind of be balancing multiple kind of sensory inputs. There's sound in there going, you have visual inputs. So it's a lot more real in terms of what people might actually need in a real world setting.
Yeah, no, and obviously you could turn the gameplay up or down. I mean, depending upon sort of the age and, adaptability of the individual too. So,
which
that's great too.
Where we can kind of personalize it and make it a little bit more fun. So
that's pretty cool. That's very amazing. I think that's really great. So have you gotten any funding for this so far? Have you guys totally like jury rigged this in your lab?
This is largely jury rigged.
Pretty impressive for jury rigging.
It's fun and really, just trying to kind of build it out. We applied for a couple of grants to kind of test this out. And we didn't get funded. I think cancer treatments and some of these other ones beat us out, which I totally get. But I think there's a few other funding mechanisms that we're starting to kind of explore, these SBIR grants or STTR grants through the NIH. Another option, that we talked about was kind of trying to find something, I think it's MII, setting up some funding and opportunities through that. Or if there's any fantastic donors or companies, who want to sponsor a small clinical trial, I'm teasing about that. But I think the kind of thought is, how can we, one, get a product that's usable? Because I don't think, as it is right now with the wires, I think we really need to have it be wireless to actually be functional. Otherwise, we're not going to kind of, this isn't something you can kind of take, and use in your, in your living room. The Rift and the HTC Vive, you're looking at $2,500 to $3,200, laptop or desktop computer versus a Quest, which is like $500. So if we're able to actually make it work with that and this other wireless technology, I think that's something you could actually put in your home that you can have for multi-purpose gaming, but that's kind of fun and has a therapeutic use. There's going to be no kid that's going to say, no, I'm not going to go practice my CBT homework if it involves like, fun virtual reality, right? Versus, when I normally tell kids, oh, go practice, your deep breathing. No. So I think it has some pretty cool potential. Yeah.
No, that's great. I think that's great. And yes, obviously I was, watching the VR games. Beat Saber was like the #1 game for the longest time. And it's a, variant on this concept, but, they don't have any of the sort of the clinical business. It just gets faster, as I understand. It just gets faster as you play it. But no, I think this is a very smart approach on this. And obviously Dodgeball is pretty much a universal game. I think everybody I've ever known has played Dodgeball at least once, even in foreign countries.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing is there's no language. There's no, and we debated with that of kind of, do we use language? Do we not use language? Because there's a few other different types of products we're also working on too, in terms of how do we kind of make treatments better for kids, adolescents, and young adults. And in response to one of the kind of questions that came up, can this be used in adults? Absolutely. I think, the same type of stuff that we're doing can be used in adolescents. So we kind of work with anywhere from kids to all the way to young adults. This could even be used in older adults. I think that this has a ton of cool potential to help people. It just so happens that I mainly work with kind of kids and adolescents, and I'm happy to start to expand it to young adults. Oftentimes, young adults and older adults tend to be a little bit more motivated to use it in real time versus young kids where we have to kind of cajole or kind of reinforce the use of it. Like, hey, if you practice your deep breathing for 5 minutes, you get 5 minutes of iPad time or something along those lines. So that's where I kind of, the initial kind of market or kind of target audience was kind of kids, but I think adolescents, young adults, and given the growing anxiety that's kind of coming up on college campuses, one idea that we've been kicking around is, could this have some use even in college counseling centers? So, because again, it takes away from it. You're just playing a video game.
No, I think you got a lot of interesting parts to this. You should definitely, you should pursue funding for this, because I've seen a lot of ideas. Obviously, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs about these various projects, but no, I think this has great applicability. I think that's all the questions I have. Does anybody else from the audience? I think we only have just the one question. Any chats?
And I also know it's late in the day, right? Like everybody's.
You're the last one. You are it. So we appreciate your sticking around for us here. Maybe we could play a little dodgeball after this. That would be great.
So that'll be the kind of next thing. So and to respond to Susan's other question, we're currently piloting out, in the lab. The hope is to kind of start to test this out in probably the next 2 months, kind of doing a study of if we have somebody, if families, children, adolescents, young adults kind of come in, can we actually teach them to use these skills a bit better? And does that have change or affect anxiety in any sort of way? And then have those ratings be done by somebody who doesn't know if they're using VR Dodgeball or not, even in a relatively short period of time. Because I think that that's something where now when we're showing what you might think of as target engagement, or is the tool working the way we intend it to, which will kind of be the kind of next series of kind of things after we get the wireless thing up and running.
Cool. Very cool. All right. Thanks so much for your time, Joe. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being with us today and sharing your project. We should definitely talk some more. I mean, there are definitely there are definitely funding opportunities, I think, for you. So we should stay in touch.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it. And Joe, can we share your email address and stuff with people?
Oh, yeah, please send it along.
Okay, great. If people want to follow up with you, that would be great. Can you stop sharing?
Stop sharing. Yep, thank you. Sorry.
Yes, okay, great. Appreciate it. No, you're good. All good. So thanks again. Thanks, appreciate you being with us late in this day on a Friday afternoon. That's pretty brave of you, so we appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, I'll catch you guys later.
Thanks so much. And so I think that brings us to the end of the VR Maverick conference this year. We appreciate all of you being with us. As I said before, we have been recording it. We will make the recordings available to the attendees, as well as we'll make the speakers' contact information available as well. So thank you all. Again, thanks to the University of Maryland and Johns Hopkins for making this conference possible. Thanks to the U.S. Department of Commerce for their generous funding. And CDHX has been very happy and very proud to be a co-sponsor of the 2020 Maverick Conference. And with that, I will leave you all to have a great weekend. And you know, be safe out there. Don't play too much dodgeball. And we'll talk to you later. Thanks so much. Bye.